Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
And welcome back to America's Heroes Group. This time our roundtable, She Serves, She Matters, What She Voices. Coalition partner, Sistah Soldier. September is National Suicide Prevention Month and Hispanic Heritage Month. Today is Saturday, September 10th, 2022. Our host is Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Arvin Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have our partner with us, Wanda. She's a U.S. Army veteran and president and CEO of She Vet Inspire. And she's brought us a panelist, Arvin Furlong. She is the founder and CEO of Communication 24/7 and a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. We're going to talk about traits of empowered communicators. And one thing I wanted to mention as well, one of the great things on Miss Furlong's resume, she was a Marine Corps veteran and the first awarded the Sergeant Major Dan Daly Award and the first woman Marine to be appointed editor of the Chronicle Century, the Marine Corps' oldest newspaper. How are you guys doing today?
How are you doing?
Wonderful.
So tell us, what's a trait of an empowered communicator?
Trait of an empowered communicator. Well, I think the number one trait of any empowered communicator is that they know their audience. They are able to adapt their message. They're able to adapt their delivery style. They're able to adapt their listening style, all depending on who is standing or sitting in front of them, whether it's just one person or 1,000 people. They have to be incredibly in tuned into the audience and remain audience focused throughout that message.
So tell us a little bit about 24/7. What is 24/7 Communications about?
I created Communication 24/7 about 15 months ago. I had taught at the college level for 18 years, teaching communication and public speaking courses. And like a lot of other people in the age of COVID, I decided maybe this was time to branch out and do something different. So I decided to start a business. And now I go into organizations and I help them manage their most difficult communication challenges. So I work directly with their leadership, managers, helping them team build, learn how to adapt their communication styles and conflict management, learn how to give more effective feedback, all of those things.
So when you watch YouTube and things like that, and a lot of these social media platforms, what do you see as big mistakes or common mistakes that people make when they're trying to communicate or deliver a message?
I think the number one mistake that a lot of people will make, whether they are online or they're in person, is not really being in the moment, living in the moment, paying attention to whomever it is that they're talking to, and really just giving them the listening that situation deserves. Because, just like what we're doing, we're talking right now, if we were to be online on YouTube, and someone is looking away all over the place or not looking at the camera or messing with their phone, I see that happen a lot. So I think that's something that I think many of us could probably do a much better job at, whether it's in person or online, just being in the moment and listening.
So why is that? Why do you think so many people are distracted? Because it seems like, particularly with cell phones, people tend to not be present, like you just mentioned. They kind of want to go off and get in their own little world and not be present in the conversation.
Yeah. Don't get me started. It's one of the things, just from being in the classroom to being in a restaurant, you see this happening at such a young age. One of my biggest pet peeves is I'll see parents come into a restaurant with their young child and they sit the child down at the table and immediately what do? Put an iPad, just slap an iPad right there in front of the kid's face. And it's just training them, to not pay attention to the conversation that's happening. And so, of course, I blame a little bit social media. Anything that's based off of an addiction model is probably not going to be good for your communication. So it's our attention spans are like the attention span of a gnat anymore. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. So we really have a lot of work to do to try to manage how much time we spend on social media and on our cell phones versus how much time we dedicate to actual human beings and just focusing on that art of communication and giving that person our time and our just being in the moment and our being fully present.
So what inspired you to kind of get into communication?
When I went into the Marine Corps, I went in right out of high school, and I knew I wanted to be in journalism. So, of course, that was the first thing that I chose. And my MOS ended up being public affairs, so I went to broadcasting school. I went to print journalism school, and I'm so happy that that's how it worked out because I absolutely loved it. I think that's where I thrived, and just being able to get a pen and a pad and do a deep dive and do interviews, kind of like what you're doing, and learning about other Marines and their families and what's happening in the Marine Corps. And it was just the best gig ever. I always say public affairs was the best MOS ever. It really was.
I wish I'd done it myself when I was in the military. I was a mechanic, but I went to school to study public affairs and kind of went through the ranks of doing college radio and things along those lines. But the thing that I always love about communication is hearing people's stories. Like that is what drives me to really do this every weekend. We're most of us are volunteers on this show, but just hearing people's stories and hearing their commitments to serving other people, particularly when things that you guys are doing, you're going out and teaching people how to be effective communicators, but at the same time, showing people how much power that can have when you are an effective communicator.
Oh, absolutely. One of the best gifts that I think you can give to yourself is investing in learning how to become a stronger communicator. And the research is there. It shows that those who are more effective at communication, they're healthier, their personal lives gain from it, their professional lives stand to gain from it. You're more influential. So if you want to get involved in politics, whether it's national or down to the local level, in your Board of Education locally, you just stand a better chance of being able to make a positive change in the world around you. And that's what it means to be truly empowered. When you know that you can affect the world around you in a positive way, that is truly a powerful feeling.
So where do you see yourself, say, 5 years from now with your business? You have 24/7 communications. What do you want to take this business 5 years from now?
World domination. No, I'm just kidding. No, I really want to be able to do the most good on the largest stage that I possibly can. So I am just trying to reach out to as many people as I can so that I can be of service. So as far as my business goes, I really just hope I can be able to transition to an even larger, stage so that I can just help others learn to become empowered and help them, whatever their goals are. That's what I'm here for. That's why I just love teaching, so much. That's what it was all about. So get on those bigger stages. That's my goal.
So one of the things I always think about when I think about what's going on in the media today, and that is it seems we're losing. I don't know if we ever had it, but it seems like we need to do a better job at understanding how to decode information. So when I say that, what I'm saying is basically there's so much misinformation out in social media and out in the public domain. How do we become better at decoding information and listening to information to understand if we're hearing a true story, or if we're hearing propaganda, if we're hearing something that's accurate or not? How do we get better at that?
Yeah, media literacy is something else that's close to my heart. I'm a media analyst, and so one of the things I do, I can't believe I get paid to read the news and I get to rate it for reliability and bias. And so this is another thing that I feel very strongly about, with teaching others how to do that, how to be a savvy consumer of communication. And a lot of times what we're doing is when we read the news, we're focused a lot. We're hyper-focused on how biased is it, right? Mm-hmm. Is this something that is coming from the right? Is this something that's coming from the left? When really what we should be doing is focusing more on the reliability aspect of what everything is going to have a little bit of bias. We can't help it. People are writing these articles, and of course, those little biases can seep in through the language that is used, how we frame the particular narrative, the type of statistics that we choose to use in order to support whatever it is, the argument, that we're trying to make. So whenever we're reading the news or listening to the news, I highly recommend that we focus more so on the reliability aspect of it. So try to think in terms of, is this something that is truly news? Is this like an Associated Press type of news article where it truly is just, who, what, where, and how? It's explaining the basics. But if this ends up being the type of article that someone now wants to start explaining why something is happening, then we're starting to get more into analysis, and that's going to be a little less reliable, right? Then we start adding the talking heads, and they start giving their opinions on things, and that ends up being less and less reliable. So just pay attention to the difference between news and analysis and opinion, and I think that will help go a long way in our understanding what it is that we're paying attention to.
So what is our fascination with conspiracy theories?
It's clickbait, right?
Right. It seems like when I turn on YouTube, like 50,000 different channels pop up about aliens coming to get me, and if they're not aliens, it's some kind of deep state type stuff, whatever. I mean, it's still. But what is it? What is our fascination with these conspiracy? And people believe this stuff. People are actually consuming this and are taking it as fact.
Right. And the funny thing about that is, in being a media analyst, we just had a conversation about this the other day. I work with a group of media analysts, so when we read the news, we read it together, and we always have a good cross-section of right-leaning, left-leaning, and then centrist type of analysts. And so we end up having some really good conversations, as you can imagine. But the funny thing that's happening is, if you'll read something that is way, way, way to the far right, like hyper-partisan extreme right, or way, way, way to the left, hyper-partisan extreme left, there's a lot of overlap, in those areas. It's almost like coming full circle. And I don't know what the pathology is behind that. I just know that, emotions are contagious, and the more you can get someone to feel something, the more likely they are to share it, and the more likely they are to be louder, about it. And so it's kind of like this perfect storm, this fire catches, and then it just kind of ends up like wildfire, just going all over the place, and it's all based on the emotions. Associated Press and Reuters just isn't as, I guess, fun or exciting to read as something else. Talking about aliens, landing in the.
It's funny because I remember I saw a documentary, and what they said that they blamed 60 Minutes for some of the destruction of what's going on with improper news or improper news reporting. And the reason why they blame 60 Minutes is because before 60 Minutes, people didn't watch the news for entertainment. They watched the news to get information. And then 60 Minutes was the first show that was like #1 in the ratings, and all of a sudden people realized that you could actually entertain people with news. So then the news started to become entertaining, and it became about selling, commercials and things like that to get more eyeballs and get ratings and things along those lines. And then all of a sudden, you have the Fox News is this way, and then you got the MSNBC is the other way, and then you got all these different types of news outlets that are more about, like you mentioned, spinning a story as opposed to trying to give you information.
Yeah, something similar happened with Kennedy and Nixon. They had the first televised presidential debate between Kennedy and Nixon. And when they did the feedback afterwards, they asked all of the listeners to kind of rate what they thought about the presidential debate. And the ones that listened on the radio felt that Nixon won the debate. And then the ones who actually saw it on television, they sided with Kennedy. And, so it's kind of like the beginning of making sure that you're looking good. Kennedy had the makeup on. He accepted, the powder, wanted to make sure he looked fresh, nice and tan. And then Nixon wasn't feeling so well. He didn't want to wear the makeup, and he's over there looking all sickly and pale and sweaty. And it just did not bode well, for a viewing audience. And so it does. It has a huge impact on our perception of what it is that, what it is that we're watching or listening to, all that information that's coming in, and it's having an impact on how we're perceiving that message.
So if you can give somebody 5 tips as to be a more effective communicator, what would those 5 things be?
I would say tip number 1, like I said earlier, know your audience. Make sure that you can adapt your message and your delivery and your listening style. Number 2, know the situation. When you're thinking about communicating with someone, how important is that message? If you are trying to communicate something that's happening within the family, a text message maybe is not the best way, to send it. Maybe pick up the phone and call them. Number 3, you need to know yourself and what are your own values so that you can also determine what are your boundaries and what are your expectations out of a communication situation. And I think the 4th one, I would say know your goals. Keep on message what it is that you want to achieve by communicating with this person, and keep that in mind. Do not go off the rails or, allow anything to, go in a different direction. And then number 5, I would say know when to stop, know when to give space, know when to give time, acknowledge emotions do impact how they're communicating with you, and your emotions impact how you're communicating with them. And sometimes just stopping and giving it time is the best way, to communicate with that other person.
So what makes a successful media specialist?
A successful media specialist. Are you talking in terms of news, or are you talking in terms of
I guess more in line with what you're doing with 24/7. So when you're out there, promoting your business and teaching people how to be effective communicators, how did you build a business around that?
Yeah, the thing that has been most successful for me is making sure that I get out there in different groups and just listen. I ask a lot of questions. I'm creating a lot of relationships, and in turn, what happens is whenever I've developed a relationship with someone, and I'm really listening to what it is. I'm trying to tune in to what it is that they need, so that I can figure out if I can be of service to them. And if I can't, then hopefully I'll know someone who can be of service to them. That's really the core for me, is developing those relationships, networking, getting on the phone, doing a lot of listening, and having a lot of conversations, and making people feel as if they're being heard.
I think that's so critical, making sure the people that you're listening as also, but also getting that feedback from paying attention to the person you're talking to, so you understand if you're on the same page or not.
That's right.
Very, very good stuff. Wanda Petty, thanks for bringing a great guest. We have Jennifer Arvin Furlong. She's a founder and CEO of Communications 24/7 and a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. We appreciate your time and all the great information you've given us.
Oh, thank you for
having
me.
Any final words?
I'm gonna hand that over to Sistah.
Well, I would just say that for all those who are transitioning from the service, to recognize the difference between the ways we communicate in the military and the ways we communicate in the civilian world, that the acronyms don't fly so much, and employers really want to know that you understand them. Just as Jennifer was saying, is building that relationship, making sure we're listening to what it is that they need.
And on that note, thanks for joining us. This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.